Start with the name of Allah, who is kind and merciful. Hi friends. In my previous video, I told you about Mohenjo-Daro, and today I will tell you about the Mesopotamia Civilization. So guys, you should be watching the full video. And if you haven't subscribed my channel yet, then subscribe my YouTube channel and click the bell icon for further videos. Let's watch the scene.
Hi Paul.
How are you, Carla?
Good. How are you, Paul?
Good. Sit, Carla.
Paul, what are you thinking?
Do you know about the Mesopotamia Civilization?
Mesopotamia.
It's Mesopotamia.
No. I haven't single quote know about Mesopotamia. What is Mesopotamia? Tell me.
Do you really want to listen about Mesopotamia?
Yes.
Mesopotamia Civilization is the oldest civilization of the world.
Okay.
Mesopotamia is located in the region now known as the Middle East, which includes parts of Southwest Asia and lands around the eastern Mediterranean Sea. It is part of the Fertile Crescent, an area also known as Cradle of Civilization. For the number of innovations that arose from the early societies in this region, which are among some of the earliest known human civilizations on Earth. The word Mesopotamia is formed from the ancient words meso, meaning between or in the middle of, and potamos, meaning river. Situated in the fertile valleys between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the region is now home to modern-day Iraq, Kuwait, Turkey and Syria. There are 4 empires which ruled Mesopotamia.
Okay.
They were the Akkadian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Assyrian Empire, and the Neo-Babylonian Empire. The Akkadian military conquered the independent city-states of Sumer and united them under King Sargon. For 1,200 years, Sumer was a land of independent city-states. The region was one of the 4 riverine civilizations where writing was invented, along with the Nile Valley in ancient Egypt, the Indus Valley Civilization in the Indian subcontinent, and the Yellow River in ancient China. Mesopotamia housed historically important cities such as Uruk, Nippur, Nineveh, Ashur and Babylon, as well as major territorial states such as the city of Eridu, the Akkadian kingdoms, the 3rd dynasty of Ur, and the various Assyrian empires. Some of the important historical Mesopotamian leaders were Ur-Nammu, king of Ur, Sargon of Akkad, who established the Akkadian Empire, Hammurabi, who established the Old Babylonian state, Ashur-uballit II and Tiglath-Pileser, who established the Assyrian Empire.
Okay.
Humans first settled in Mesopotamia in the Paleolithic era. By 14,000 BC, people in the region lived in small settlements with circular houses. 5,000 years later, these houses formed farming communities following the domestication of animals and the development of agriculture, most notably irrigation techniques that took advantage of the proximity of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. These scattered agrarian communities started in the northern part of the ancient Mesopotamian region and spread south, continuing to grow for several thousand years until forming what modern humans would recognize as cities, which were considered the work of the Sumer people. Uruk was the first of these cities. Dating back to around 3200 BC, it was a mud brick metropolis built on the riches brought from trade and conquest and featured public art, gigantic columns and temples. At its peak, it had a population of some 50,000 citizens. The earliest language written in Mesopotamia was Sumerian, an agglutinative language isolate. Along with Sumerian, Semitic languages were also spoken in early Mesopotamia.
Nice.
Sumerians are also responsible for the earliest form of written language, cuneiform, with which they kept detailed clerical records. Libraries were extant in towns and temples during the Babylonian Empire. An old Sumerian proverb averred that he who would excel in the school of the scribes must rise with the dawn. Women as well as men learned to read and write, and for the Semitic Babylonians, this involved knowledge of the extinct Sumerian language, and a complicated and extensive syllabary. Mesopotamian mathematics and science was based on a sexagesimal, base 60, numeral system. This is the source of the 60-minute hour, the 24-hour day, and the 360-degree circle. The Sumerian calendar was based on the 7-day week. This form of mathematics was instrumental in early map making. The Babylonians also had theorems on how to measure the area of several shapes and solids. They measured the circumference of a circle as 3 times the diameter and the area as 1/12 the square of the circumference, which would be correct if euro were fixed at 3. The volume of a cylinder was taken as the product of the area of the base and the height. However, the volume of the frustum of a cone or a square pyramid was incorrectly taken as the product of the height and half the sum of the bases. Also, there was a recent discovery in which a tablet used euro as 25/8, 3.125 instead of 3.14159 tilde.
Amazing.
The Babylonians are also known for the Babylonian mile, which was a measure of distance equal to about 7 modern miles, 11 kilometers. This measurement for distances eventually was converted to a time mile used for measuring the travel of the sun, therefore, representing time.
Which things was invented in Mesopotamia?
Mesopotamian people invented many technologies including metal and copper working, glass and lamp making, textile weaving, flood control, water storage, and irrigation. They were also one of the first Bronze Age societies in the world. They developed from copper, bronze, and gold onto iron.
Nice.
Palaces were decorated with hundreds of kilograms of these very expensive metals. Also, copper, bronze, and iron were used for armor as well as for different weapons such as swords, daggers, spears, and maces. According to a recent hypothesis, the Archimedes screw may have been used by Sennacherib, king of Assyria, for the water systems at the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and Nineveh in the 7th century BC, although mainstream scholarship holds it to be a Greek invention of later times. Later, during the Parthian or Sasanian periods, the Baghdad Battery, which may have been the world's first battery, was created in Mesopotamia.
What was the religion of them?
Ancient Mesopotamian religion was the first recorded. Mesopotamians believed that the world was a flat disk, surrounded by a huge, cold space, and above that, heaven. They also believed that water was everywhere, the top, bottom and sides, and that the universe was born from this enormous sea. In addition, Mesopotamian religion was polytheistic. Although the beliefs described above were held in common among Mesopotamians, there were also regional variations. The Sumerian word for universe is Enki, which refers to the god En and the goddess Ki. Their son was Enlil, the air god. They believed that Enlil was the most powerful god. He was the chief god of the pantheon. The Sumerians also posed philosophical questions, such as, where are we? Where are we? How did we get here? They attributed answers to these questions to explanations provided by their gods.
Okay.
Do you know, Mesopotamians celebrated the festivals in that time?
Really?
Ancient Mesopotamians had ceremonies each month. The theme of the rituals and festivals for each month was determined by at least 6 important factors. 1. The lunar phase. A waxing moon meant abundance and growth, while a waning moon was associated with decline, conservation, and festivals of the underworld. 2. The phase of the annual agricultural cycle. 3. Equinoxes and solstices. 4. The local mythos and its divine patrons. 5. The success of the reigning monarch. 6. The Akidu, or New Year festival, first full moon after spring equinox. 7. Commemoration of specific historical events, founding, military victories, temple holidays, etc.
Amazing. Paul, were they listened music?
Yes, Carla, Mesopotamians also listened to music. Some songs were written for the gods, but many were written to describe important events. Although music and songs amused the kings, they were also enjoyed by ordinary people who liked to sing and dance in their homes or in the marketplaces. Songs were sung to children who passed them on to their children. Thus, songs were passed on through many generations as an oral tradition until writing was more universal. These songs provided a means of passing on through the centuries highly important information about historical events.
Wow. Were they followed the law codes?
Mesopotamia, as shown by successive law codes, those of Uruk-Jaina, Lipit-Ishtar and Hammurabi, across its history became more and more a patriarchal society, one in which the men were far more powerful than the women. For example, during the earliest Sumerian period, the En, or high priest of male gods, was originally a woman, that of female goddesses, a man. Thorkild Jacobson, as well as many others, has suggested that early Mesopotamian society was ruled by a council of elders in which men and women were equally represented, but that over time, as the status of women fell, that of men increased. As for schooling, only royal offspring and sons of the rich and professionals, such as scribes, physicians, temple administrators, went to school.
Interesting.
Most boys were taught their father's trade or were apprenticed out to learn a trade. Girls had to stay home with their mothers to learn housekeeping and cooking, and to look after the younger children. Some children would help with crushing grain or cleaning birds. Unusually for that time in history, women in Mesopotamia had rights.
If someone died, how were they be buried?
Hundreds of graves have been excavated in parts of Mesopotamia, revealing information about Mesopotamian burial habits. In the city of Ur, most people were buried in family graves under their houses, along with some possessions. A few have been found wrapped in mats and carpets. Deceased children were put in big jars, which were placed in the family chapel. Other remains have been found buried in common city graveyards. 17 graves have been found with very precious objects in them. It is assumed that these were royal graves.
Oh.
Rich of various periods have been discovered to have sought burial in Bahrain, identified with Sumerian Dilmun.
Interesting.
The Mesopotamians believed their kings and queens were descended from the city of gods, but, unlike the ancient Egyptians, they never believed their kings were real gods. Most kings named themselves King of the Universe or Great King. Another common name was Shepherd, as kings had to look after their people.
Amazing.
While making art predates civilization in Mesopotamia, the innovations there include creating art on a larger scale, often in the context of their grandiose and complex architecture, and frequently employing metalwork. One of the earliest examples of metalwork in art comes from southern Mesopotamia. A silver statuette of a kneeling bull from 3000 BC. Before this, painted ceramics and limestone were the most common art forms. Another metal-based work, a goat standing on its hind legs and leaning on the branches of a tree, featuring gold and copper along with other materials, was found in the Great Death Pit at Ur and dates to 2500 BC.
Nice.
Mesopotamian art often depicted its rulers and the glories of their lives. Also created around 2500 BC. In Ur is the intricate Standard of Ur, a shell and limestone structure that features an early example of complex pictorial narrative, depicting the history of war and peace. In 2230 BC, Akkadian King Naram-Sin was the subject of an elaborate work in limestone that depicts a military victory in the Zagros Mountains and presents Naram-Sin as divine. Among the most dynamic forms of Mesopotamian art are the reliefs of the Assyrian kings in their palaces, notably from Ashurbanipal's reign around 635 BC. One famous relief in his palace in Nimrud shows him leading an army into battle, accompanied by the winged god Ashur.
Interesting.
Ashurbanipal is also featured in multiple reliefs that portray his frequent lion hunting activity. An impressive lion image also figures into the Ishtar Gate in 585 BC. During the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II and fashioned from glazed bricks. Do you know that Mesopotamia also mentioned in Bible?
Really?
It is mentioned several times. In the New Testament it is mentioned twice, Acts 2:9, and Acts 7:2. In the Old Testament it is mentioned only by its regional names as Padan Aram in Genesis 24:4, 10 and 29.
Paul, how Mesopotamia destroyed.
Ancient empire collapsed due to massive dust storms. Study an ancient civilization that ruled Mesopotamia nearly 4,000 years ago was likely wiped out because of disastrous dust storms, a new study suggests. Its history is marked by many important inventions that changed the world, including the concept of time, math, the wheel, sailboats, maps and writing. Mesopotamia is also defined by a changing succession of ruling bodies from different areas and cities that seized control over a period of thousands of years.
You gave me interesting knowledge today about Mesopotamia. I will always remember the fascinating history of Mesopotamia.
Yes.
Thank you so much. It's too late, I want to go now.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. friends. Hopefully you liked my video about Mesopotamia. Let us know if you have any suggestions or question about Mesopotamia Civilization. And if you haven't subscribed my YouTube channel yet, then subscribe my channel and click the bell icon for further videos. Thank you for watching my channel.